So we all knew that entering the season, the biggest X factor surrounding the Philadelphia 76ers was what type of leap Tyrese Maxey could take. Was he ready to step into that co-star role with Joel Embiid? Well, the results through the first 6 games have been extremely positive, but Nick Nurse does not remain satisfied. In this video, I want to break down his latest comments regarding Maxey, as well as the overall results for what we've seen on the floor and how encouraging that is in the long run. Now, before I dive fully into it, I do want to make sure you guys are hitting that subscribe button. That as of now, 82.7% of you guys tuning into the videos have not subscribed to the channel. Season is in full swing now. I want to keep the Sixers Digest family growing. I will be with you start to finish this season, and this team has given me plenty to talk about. So let's get into the topic of today, which is specifically Tyrese Maxey and the comments made by Nick Nurse about how much more he wants. So I'm going to play the video now and go from there.
Finish with 22, 5, and 10, and
yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough. He's too good to have a quiet first half. He's got to not get into those modes where he's not being more aggressive. I'm not criticizing him. I'm just trying to keep him employing that he needs to be more aggressive. He's too good at beating people off the dribble. He's too good a shooter to not take more chances, his own chances. So we're going to keep working on that a little bit, but I'm glad that he bounced back. We started calling a few things for him. You probably saw we ran the same play about 7 straight times, and then we flipped it around and ran the same thing going the other direction, and he came off and hit a 3 one time, and he drove in one time and laid it in, so again, like sometimes when the ball isn't finding you or you're not as aggressive as we'd like you to be, we try to manufacture some things to get them aggressive, and there's a little bit of what was going on in the fourth.
So there's a whole lot that I like in that answer from Nick Nurse. So I'm going to begin with the fact that he is coaching Tyrese Maxey hard. That Tyrese Maxey has played incredible to start the season, and Nick Nurse still is not satisfied. I like that he, first off, took this question, which was essentially a little bit of a softball question, talk about how good Tyrese Maxey has been, because he has been. And Nick Nurse kind of shut that down and said, yes, he's been good, but I know he's capable of so much more. That I know there's more that we can get on him. There's no excuse for him to be this passive or that he's not commanding his own shot in that way. Because we have seen ways. We've seen quarters go by where Tyrese Maxey has not attempted a shot, and that cannot happen. But for the most part, the results have been overtly positive, and I can't wait to see how much more Nick Nurse can get out of him. Let's begin by now diving into the box score with Tyrese Maxey, specifically on what he has done for the season. We are 6 games in at this point, and the first thing that I want to point out here is the assists and turnovers. That one of the greatest questions going into the season is, was Tyrese Maxey ready to step up and be a true point guard? And the answer to that looks like a resounding yes. These past 2 games specifically, and that video was taken after the Suns game, where Maxey finished with 22 points, 10 assists, and 3 turnovers in that matchup. He followed that up by a performance against the Wizards last night, where he had another 22 point, 11 assists, which marks a career high for him, and 0 turnovers in that matchup. And he is still getting his own buckets as well. But he had 31 against the Bucks, 34 against the Raptors, 26 against the Trailblazers. You can see when looking at the first 3 games versus the second 3 games, a little more progression as a passer, a little more scoring. But I do think that is just the ebbs and flows of the NBA game based on a matchup, a night-to-night basis. Tyrese Maxey will have his nights where he goes wild. And I honestly think it's more encouraging than the fact that it almost feels like he's not playing to his peak, that we're kind of seeing him work through things, and it's still looking incredibly impressive. The biggest thing that has jumped out to me about his growth, there's a lot. Number 1 is just his vision as a passer. Number 2, just his processing of the game looks leaps and bounds improved off last year. He's been a guy, and this is very appealing and encouraging about him, but he goes 100% all the time. It feels like now he's starting to balance that with being able to pick his pace, when to speed up, when to slow down, when to draw a defender a little longer, and when to drive right past him. That's been the most impressive area to me, is his processing and reading of the game is night and day based on last year. And that's the type of leap that is very difficult to make. There's things like playing the pocket pass with Joel, where he's drawing a defender out before capitalizing on the lane that he creates. Now Tyrese Maxey is creating passes for others. He's creating shots for others. These aren't assists of just passes to a guy in the perimeter and he hits a 3-pointer. There's passes that Tyrese Maxey's in making that would not be a basket if he does not make that pass, that he is leading a guy to score. That is a mature point guard, that he looks like a 10-year NBA vet out there, and I can't believe that I'm speaking this highly about him this quickly into the season. Kind of going into this year, I want to give it to about the All-Star break before I started to make my true calls on what this guy looks like as a future. Is he best as a point guard? Is he best? Do they need to add another primary ball handler to give him the off-ball freedom and capitalize on his own scoring? Well, we're only 6 games in, and he's already proving plenty of people wrong about him not being able to be a point guard. There was a lot of chatter about that leading up, that Tyrese Maxey is a great player, but he's just not a point guard. And I was trying to push back on that for the reason that we keep seeing this guy improve, that I have never seen a player improve at the rate of Tyrese Maxey. This is the same guy who the mark on him coming out of college was he was not a good enough three-point shooter. He was a 29% three-point shooter in his lone year at Kentucky. Flash forward 3 years into his NBA career, and he's been a top 5 three-point shooter by percentage in 2 out of the 3 years in the NBA. That does not happen, but it has, and it's Tyrese Maxey that is doing this. So for the people that didn't think he can improve, well, he's proven you wrong right again. And the next thing that I want to jump to here is the assist-to-turnover ratio. Again, obviously very early in the season, these numbers will settle down. For example, Mike Conley at 26 on assist-to-turnover ratio. That will not last for the season. When there is a larger sample size, that will slip down. Same with Chris Paul. He's at 10.33. He finished with a 4.6 assist-to-turnover ratio last year. But look at Tyrese Maxey, 5th across the entire NBA in assist-to-turnover ratio. That is true high-level point guard play. That is him picking his spots, him limiting turnovers. And I also will point out that not all turnovers are inherently bad. That yes, you obviously want to hold on to the ball as much as possible, but not all turnovers are created equal. There's obviously dumb passes or poor decisions with the ball that should not be made. I wouldn't mind if we see a little bit of growth in turnovers from Tyrese Maxey. If he's starting to get a little more adventurous with the passes or starting to push himself on, can I fit the ball through this lane? Can I create a pass in this direction? Those are things that we've seen from guys like James Harden in the past. Again, layer by layer, add a little more to his plate at the time, but it wouldn't surprise me if we see Tyrese Maxey continue to take that growth. And it is impressive because turnovers have never been an issue for him. He's very mature in his handling of the ball, making sure not to cough up at bad times, and we're seeing that on a higher usage level. That is one thing to be able to limit your turnovers when you're essentially the third option in the offense and really only responsible for creating your own shot. It's a completely different story this year when he is serving as the primary distributor to this offense, the guy creating for Joel Embiid, and those numbers are still staying low. So that's extremely impressive to me. I mean, to talk about this here, Tyrese Maxey has been the only player in the NBA to have a 20-10 game on the season, 22 points, 11 assists, and 0 turnovers. He's the first player to record a 20-point, 10-assist game with 0 turnovers this season. That is mature point guard play. That really does not happen just out of a guy who is in his first time playing point guard. Like we're talking about when he first arrived in Philadelphia, Ben Simmons was the guy running the show. That after the Simmons holdout, Maxey was essentially forced into the role as a point guard for the first half of the season until the James Harden trade, and he looked fine. He looked adequate, but it looked like he's a guy whose natural instinct is as a scorer. Then flash forward, James Harden gets here, and Tyrese Maxey gets fully unlocked as a scorer. And for the people pushing back saying that imagine his growth if James Harden was not here, I don't think I fully agree with that. I think Tyrese Maxey really benefited from being able to learn behind James Harden, looking at how he lures a guy on a pick and roll, looking at how he creates for others. Because for the flaws that James Harden has, he is up there with the most elite of all time in the way for how he can create for others. James Harden led the NBA in assists last year with 10.7 a game. That is no coincidence that Tyrese Maxey was able to sit behind, see how that works, and benefit from Harden's passing as a whole. But now that he has stepped up into this role, it feels like he's ready. That we can see the growth as a playmaker, as a point guard, as a guy that can read the game at such a high IQ level. This guy just turned 23 this weekend, that he still has so much potential that he can grow into. He continues to get better on a night in and night out fashion, a year in and year out fashion, and he just is delivering. And to the James Harden point specifically, is we talked so much last year about how dynamic the James Harden and Joel Embiid two-man game was, and it absolutely was. Incredibly efficient, on high volume. They did it at a high level all year, and starting when Harden first came here. But I'm ready to say that I believe the two-man game with Tyrese Maxey and Joel Embiid can be more dangerous than the two-man game with James Harden and Joel Embiid. And I'm not saying that lightly, that yes, James Harden is incredibly elite at the things that he can do, but he's also fairly limited in what he can do. That when they run that two-man pick and roll, or when they ran that two-man pick and roll with Embiid and Harden, that essentially the options were there's a little pocket pass to Joel. Harden did add a little bit of a mid-range for his shot, or his creation when he got there. Or it was you get a switch, you get a big man, and then it's isolation and step back 3 time. While that was very efficient with those options, now that you have a Tyrese Maxey added to the bunch, that there is more that you can do with it. Tyrese Maxey can turn the corner, get downhill in a way that James Harden simply can't at this point in his career. That Tyrese Maxey does have a little floater, little mid-range game that James Harden also doesn't. Maxey's a significantly better finisher around the rim. And there's much more that you can do from a off-ball capacity. That there's been moments this year where, whether it be a relocation three to Tyrese Maxey, there was one play earlier on in the season where they ran the two-man game. They go with a little pocket pass to Joel. Maxey relocates to the corner. Man doesn't follow him, and Embiid kicks it out and it's a three. That never happens with James Harden. With Tyrese Maxey, who is much more of a high-motor player, much more of an off-ball movement guy, that there is so much more that can be juiced out of this two-man duo in a way that has not happened in the past. And then when you look behind these two, that this is far and away the deepest Sixers roster that we've had throughout the Joel Embiid era. They went 10 deep last night before Robert Covington even stepped in the game. And Covington's a guy that I do expect to be playing real deal rotational minutes when all things are said and done. So there's a lot to be happy about right now. But none of this happens, or there is not this room for optimism, if it is not Tyrese Maxey taking these leaps and bounds. That the keys to the offense were handed to him, and he's driving it about as well as possible. That there isn't much more that you could hope for out of the first 6 games of the season from Maxey. Yes, I know the critiques about they have not played these stellar teams yet, with the exception of the Milwaukee Bucks in Game 1, who the Bucks honestly have looked pretty bad to start this year, so I wouldn't hold that highly, but that was the first game of the season for these Sixers. I will say that they look like they're clicking and know their responsibilities, roles, and just the flow of the offense significantly better since that point. And the real test will be coming against the Boston Celtics, who are a team that Tyrese Maxey has struggled against so far in his young career. So maybe this will be the measuring stick matchup, the hold it to the fire and see what he does, but I could not be more encouraged and excited about what I'm seeing from Tyrese Maxey so far. I want to hear your thoughts, how you're feeling about the Maxey appearances so far. Drop a comment. Let me know your predictions. And by the way, just to throw this out there, this isn't anything I would hold too highly, but according to the Hoop Central NBA MVP award tracker via B-Ball Reference, we got Jokic number 1, Jason Tatum number 2, Luka Doncic number 3, Joel Embiid number 4, and Tyrese Maxey number 5 currently in the MVP race. This is not something that I would recommend you emptying your pockets going to bet on Tyrese Maxey to win MVP this year, but very cool that he is starting to receive that recognition on a national stage. Either way, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Once again, my name is Sean Barnard here on Sixers Digest. Going to be with you for start to finish this season. So cannot wait for the rest of the season to go down. Talk to you next time right here.